What's up, YouTube? I've got a question for y'all, and I'm hoping you can help me with it. I've got a ES-8 that I just got, and I hooked up to this. I basically redid my big pedal board in the studio. I did a wet-dry setup, and I wanted to show it to you and see if anybody has any ideas as to a better way to set it up. Okay, so this is the pedal board. There's 2 amps. I've got a small G-Lab 4-channel looper under the board that's giving me an additional 4 loops, and I have it coming in before the ES-8. So there's 4 loops, and then the ES-8 has 8 loops. The volume loop for the ES-8 goes out to this ABY pedal, and the isolated out goes into the front of my Sound City, and the other one comes back in and then goes out, the main out, into the front of the Vibrolux reverb. The power station gives me a loop, but if I use that, then I am not getting and I don't go into the front of the Vibrolux at all. I don't get the reverb or the tremolo, and it didn't sound all that great, honestly. So I've got it set up the way you see it here. So that's the wet-dry setup I have going on. Normally, the volume loop comes after 5 here. 5 is the chorus. So after the chorus comes the Echorec. 5, 6, 7, yeah, the H9 and the iStomp. And of course, yes, they can be moved around. But by default, that's how I have it set up. So my big question has been, how do you control 12 loops with 8 buttons? I mean, you've got more buttons, of course. You can do whatever you want with the bank buttons and stuff. But I was trying to come up with a system that made sense. And I want to show you what I came up with and ask if people have any better ideas. What I basically did was I made what I call a default button, which is just it doesn't turn anything off, but it doesn't turn anything on, and it doesn't turn anything off. So the pedals I have in the looper, number 1 is the germanium fuzz. That's like a fuzz face. Number 2 is the whammy that's out here. I'm sorry, the wah. Number 3 is the Klone and the whammy. They're on a single loop. And then the 4th loop of the G-Lab looper is the muff. Okay, and that's a pedal order that I have no need to change. I never want the fuzz anywhere else other than front. This never sounds good before it, but it does sound good before this one. And the Klone and the whammy work well coming after the wah. I don't usually use those two together, but if I do, it sounds fine. So that's how I have it set up, and I can control the whammy via MIDI. I can turn it on and off via MIDI. I can also turn on and off I think it's source audio programmable EQ that I have in the loop. So the Concord is hooked up through this Unleash, and in the loop of that, I've got that EQ pedal. And EQ pedals are cool because you can, I mean, everybody knows this. You can put on a patch that kind of makes your humbuckers a little more single coil sounding. And I can control that, turn on and off via MIDI. But in the loop of the Bad Cat, you get a pop. So I added a buffer. I think it's like a visual sound. It's pure tone from whatever. It's a buffer that's on there after it, so that it doesn't pop when it goes on and off. So those are so MIDI, and then a MIDI looper. So how do we control all of these things and be able to audition sounds easily? Of course, with the ES-8, when you go into manual mode, you can audition easily using the 8 buttons, the 8 loops that are in the ES-8. But then you don't have access to the loops, to the pedals that are in the extra looper. So what I've done is I'm thinking of it, I made a bank of patches that control these loops, and the idea is that basically then I can go into memory manual mode and then audition the pedals that are in the ES-8. So I'll show you how I did that. I've got this default patch that, like I said, it doesn't turn anything on. It also doesn't turn anything off. I've got a all off patch also. This actually does send out both it sends out MIDI signals to turn all the MIDI devices off and to turn all the loops in that MIDI looper off. So when I hit this, I know that I'm just getting plain signal, okay? Then from 3 to 8, I've made patches. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 patches here that default to having certain pedals on. And within those patches, all the buttons are reprogrammed to do certain to control certain loops or certain pedals. So within these, they're all the same. The pedals, the buttons have the same function. This 3 controls that programmable EQ, 4 controls the whammy, 5 controls the Klone, 6 controls the wah, 7 controls the fuzzy lady, and 8 controls the muff. And when I select their patches, for example, this is the muff patch. Only the muff is on now, but I can turn it off, and I can turn on the fuzzy lady, or I can turn on the wah, or I can turn on the Klone, or I can turn the Klone. I can turn the whammy on. They're on the same loops that the Klone has to be on, but now you can hear the whammy. And I can control that programmable EQ. You see it? Come on, the button there. All right. And but of course, then I can't get to other patches. So that's why I have this default. It doesn't turn anything off. It just kind of lets me come back and select a different patch. 4 is, I think, the Klone and the whammy. 3 is it doesn't turn on the EQ. The patch, I think, gives me the fuzzy lady and the wah wah. But then after it's done that, it gives me the option to turn on this again, okay? So then that goes back to being to controlling the EQ. I can at any time add in, so for all of these, see, I can add in the Klone, I can have 2 muffs, or I can turn this one off, or, 2 fuzzes. So that's how I've set it up. This is just a wah preset. This is the Klone preset, I went through that already. And this is just the fuzzy lady. So that's how I set it up. And wherever I am, if I've got a bunch of things on, if I come here and do this, and then I turn on this, and then if I just want it all off, I can always just go all off and then select another one. And then when so if I'm working, and if I've got like just the Klone on, then I can go to memory manual mode, and I can put on the electric Mistress. Ooh. It does do that. It's a little loud. Gotta love the vintage electric Mistress. So that was like the SlideRig. The SlideRig is 2. Right. So the problem with this is, of course, I can't go back. So now I can't go back and turn on, say, a muff if I have, like if I had the chorus on and the Echorec. I can't go and just stomp on the muff, because if I go back to here without saving, it's going going to turn those things off. I mean, I can go back and turn it on. And notice how when you come back, the presets that you had selected already, like the Klone, it's not lit up anymore. So you don't get that indicator when you come back here. But I can turn on the muff. Now I can go back out and I can audition those again. What was I doing? The chorus and the delay. So apologies for the handheld, but I'm wondering if anyone has any ideas about a better way to use an external looper with the ES-8 and be able to easily audition sounds. Has anyone come up with a better system? Just programming that honestly was really a lot of work. And I've been using MIDI for a long time. My first keyboard was in Sonic EPS. So I mean, I've done this stuff for a while, but it gets complicated, you know, figuring out what program change messages to send, how to get the buttons to do what you want them to do to light up correctly. There's a lot of little details that you have to be thinking about, and you can't. It's not as simple as just you know, you come up with a cool idea and then you copy it to the other banks to use different effects. You got to go back and change all those. There's a lot of parameters you got to have the defaults set correctly for, the min, max, it's all sorts of things. So the ES-8, you know, it's awesome. It's cool that you can do all the stuff with it, and at the price point, wow. Especially if you get one used like I did. But you know, when you look at something like the gig rig, the G2, I love how simple that is to use. I guess you don't get all the functionality of being able to control so many MIDI effects, at least not yet. But with that extra functionality comes a lot of complexity. So I would caution people, you know, when you see people with these big boards, a lot of times professionals are getting these things built for them by people. You're just, you know, someone likes to play guitar, getting into the minutia of how to program this stuff is difficult, and I think probably your time is better spent. If you're not already a MIDI guru, I think your time is better spent practicing your guitar and getting a simpler. I'd pay more for something simple that worked well, even if it doesn't have all the bells and whistles that the ES-8 does. That's my initial thought on that. Of course, you can just get it and use it simply. So, and people do, but it is what it is. I hope that was somewhat helpful. And if anybody has an idea as to how to do a better system for auditioning loops, I'd love to hear it. Peace.